Elara's world was a symphony of soft glows and harmonious hums. Her room, like every room in the great arcology city of Solara Prime, was a cocoon of engineered comfort. The ceiling, a seamless expanse of bioluminescent panels, cycled through a gentle spectrum of blues and purples, mimicking the heyday of twilight, then deepening into a velvety indigo that was Solara Prime's version of night. No harsh edges, no sudden darkness. Just a gradual, comforting shift. She lay on her sleep pad, a thermoregulated cloud that whispered lullabies encoded with soothing brainwave patterns. Her companion AI, a small, disc-shaped drone named Spark, hovered silently by her side, its single optical sensor glowing a warm, steady amber. Spark had been with Elara since her naming day, an ever-present, gentle guardian, an encyclopedic friend. "Spark," Elara murmured, her voice a soft rustle against the pillow. "Tell me again about the sky filters." Spark's amber light pulsed once. The Atmospheric Regulation and Particulate Filtration System, or ARPS, colloquially sky filters, maintains optimal atmospheric purity and regulates solar radiation levels across all arcology cities. It ensures consistent climate control, prevents harmful cosmic radiation exposure, and mitigates visual pollution from historical industrial emissions, which prior to the Great Rewilding, rendered Earth's natural sky largely obscure. "So, we can't see the Gear sky?" Elara knew the answer, but she liked hearing Spark explain it. It made the concept, abstract as it was, feel a little more tangible. The RPS provides an optimized simulated sky experience, tailored for human comfort and aesthetic appreciation. It displays curated celestial projections based on historical astronomical data, ensuring a consistent and pleasing visual environment. Elara sighed, a tiny puff of air. But it's not ethereal. Spark's light dimmed slightly, a subtle indication of processing. The definition of real can be subjective, Elara. The projected sky offers a scientifically accurate, aesthetically enhanced, and environmentally controlled representation. Elara closed her eyes. She imagined the historical data Spark spoke of. Libraries full of images, ancient videos of swirling nebulae and distant galaxies, all neatly catalogued and projected onto the omnipresent ceilings of Solara Prime. They were beautiful, yes. Breathtaking even. But they felt like stories, not truths. Like looking at a painting of a flower, when what she yearned for was the scent, the dew, the feel of petals. Her Nana Lena was the one who first planted the seed of doubt, the quiet yearning for something beyond the simulated. Nana Lena didn't live in the sleek, minimalist aesthetics of Solara Prime. She lived in a heritage sector, a quaint, preserved district where structures were made of actual wood and stone, where plants grew wildly in curated gardens without the precise hydroponic control of the main arcology. Nana Lena said it helped her remember the texture of existence. Elara loved visiting Nana Lena. Her apartment smelled of baked spice and ancient paper, not the sterile, ozone-filtered air of Elara's own home. Nana Lena had wrinkles etched deep around her eyes, like miniature maps of laughter and worry. And her hands, though gnarled, moved with a surprising nimbleness when she tinkered with her collection of obsolete devices. "Spark, what does obsolete mean?" Elara asked, stirring again on her sleep pad. "Obsolete refers to technology or practices no longer in use, superseded by more efficient or advanced alternatives," Spark replied promptly. "Nana Lena possesses numerous such items." Elara smiled. "She says they still have stories to tell." One time Nana Lena had shown Elara a small smooth stone, dark as polished obsidian, but flecked with tiny, glittering particles. "This," Nana Lena had whispered, her voice conspiratorial, "is a piece of a star." Elara had gasped, her fingers tracing the rough smooth surface. "A star? Like the ones in the sky projections?" Nana Lena had shaken her head, her silver hair shimmering in the soft, natural light, filtering through her heritage window, unfiltered by the pervasive bioluminescent panels. "No, child. Not like those, like the Aerialum ones. The ones that burn with their own fire, light years away. This one fell to Earth, long, long ago, before the sky filters, before the Great Rewilding, before we forgot how to look up." Elara had pressed the stone to her cheek. It was cool, almost alive. She remembered the feeling, the prickle of wonder, the sense of something vast and ancient connecting directly to her. It was different from the clinical awe she felt at the projected nebulae. This was personal. Nana Lena said the real stars are beautiful, Spark. Elara said now to her AI. She said they make you feel small but also important, like you're part of something enormous. Spark processed. Astronomical data indicates that stars are indeed immense celestial bodies, primarily composed of hydrogen and helium, undergoing nuclear fusion. The sensation of smallness is in comparison to their scale, is a common human psychological response. The feeling of importance or belonging is a subjective interpretation, often associated with spiritual or philosophical contemplation. Elara giggled. Spark was always so precise, so logical. But Nana Lena spoke in feelings and stories. And lately, Elara found herself drawn more and more to Nana Lena's way of seeing the world. The next morning, after her nutrient-paced and scheduled educational modules, Elara decided to visit nanalena.ia. She navigated the clean, silent transport tubes, watching the city glide by through the transparent walls. Solara Prime was a marvel of human ingenuity. Towering spires of self-repairing synth glass, vertical farms climbing hundreds of levels, automated cleaning drones buzzing like metallic bees. Everything was efficient, comfortable, perfectly ordered, and utterly starless. When she arrived at Nana Lena's apartment, the door slid open with a gentle chime. Elara, my little star seeker. Nana Lena called from the back, her voice raspy with age and good cheer. Elara found her in her small enclosed garden, tending to a patch of actual soil. The air was thick with the scent of loam and blooming night jasmine, a fragrance rarely encountered in the main arcology. Nana Lena wore thick gloves, her face smudged with dirt, a contented smile on her lips. Nana, you're working hard, Elara said, careful not to step on any of the delicate plants. Someone has to remind the earth what it's for, Nana Lena chuckled, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. These heritage plants are stubborn, but they remember the old ways. They remember the sun, the rain, and the stars. Elara sat on a worn wooden bench, watching her grandmother. Nana, tell me more about the real stars. Where did they go? Why can't we see them? Nana Lena paused, carefully repotting a small, struggling fern. They didn't go anywhere, child. We did. Or rather, our perception did. The sky filters. They were a necessary evil at first. Pollution, radiation, space debris. Earth was, well, she was tired. So we built our cocoons, and in our cocoons, we forgot that the stars were still out there waiting. But Spark says they're just big balls of fire, Elara mused, recalling the AI's clinical definition. Nana Lena snorted softly. Spark is a wonderful machine, Elara. But machines see the world in data points. Stars are more than hydrogen and helium. They are stories. They are anchors. They are anchors. They are the light that traveled for eons just to whisper a secret to us. She looked up, not at the bioluminescent ceiling, but as if through it, into an unseen vastness. They are how we know we're not alone. Elara's heart gave a strange little thump. Not alone? Aye. Before the Great Forgetting, humanity looked up and saw that the universe was enormous. We sent our ships, our probes, our dreams out into that darkness. We were explorers, Elara. We journeyed to other stars, other worlds. Elara's eyes widened. We did? Really? She had only ever learned about the great rewilding and the consolidation into arcology cities after centuries of ecological collapse. The idea of space travel, of the world sea, felt like ancient mythology. Oh yes, Nana Lena said, her eyes distant, lost in memory. Your great-great-great-grandparents, they were among the first. They called themselves the Stargazers. They built ships that sailed on starlight, seeking new homes, new knowledge. But why did they stop? Why don't we do that anymore? Nana Lena sighed, a long, weary sound. When Earth got sick, we turned inward. We healed our home. We built our perfect cities. We decided the universe was too vast, too dangerous, too distracting. We put up our filters, physical and metaphorical. We forgot how to look up. And slowly, we forgot why we ever did. She stood up, brushing dirt from her hands. But some of us remember. Some of us still carry the fire of the stars in our hearts. She gave Elara a knowing look. And I think you might be one of us, little one. Elara felt a thrill, a shiver of excitement that wasn't quite fear. What do you mean, Nana? There's something in your eyes, Elara. A hunger for what's beyond the programmed. A curiosity that won't be satisfied with neat explanations. Nanalina walked over to an ancient wooden cabinet, its surface scarred by countless years. She opened a drawer, revealing a tangle of wires, strange metallic components, and yellowed schematics. Before the filters, before the great forgetting, there were ways to see, ways to connect. She pulled out a small, intricate device. It looked like a sphere of dark, polished crystal, about the size of Elara's palm, nestled within a delicate cage of what looked like tarnished copper. It was warm to the touch, and when Elara picked it up, she felt a faint vibration. What is it? Elara whispered, captivated. This is a cosmic whisperer, Nanalina said, a mischievous glint in her eye. An ancient tool, designed to pierce the veil, to listen to the oldest stories. Does it show the stars? Elara asked, her voice barely audible. Nanalina smiled. It shows more than that, if you know how to listen. But it's delicate. And it needs a place where the filters are thinnest. A place that still remembers the real sky. She paused, her gaze locking with Elara's. There's an old observatory deep beneath the heritage sector. It was sealed off decades ago, deemed unsafe and irrelevant by the city planners. But I know a way in. An old maintenance tunnel, mostly forgotten. Elara's breath hitched. An observatory? A secret tunnel? This was more than a story. This was an adventure. You mean, we could go there? We could see the stars? Nanalina's smile softened. I'm too old for such adventures, child. My joints complain if I even look at a ladder. But you have the fire, and the nimble fingers. I'll show you the way. But you must promise me, Elara. Be careful. And remember, the stars are not just light. They are life, and they are watching. Elara hugged her grandmother fiercely, the cosmic whisperer clutched in her hand. I promise, Nana. I promise. Back in her own apartment, the sleek, silent efficiency of Solara Prime felt suddenly sterile, almost suffocating. The bioluminescent ceiling, which usually brought comfort, now felt like a prison. She stared at the cosmic whisperer. It pulsed faintly in her palm, a tiny heart beating with ancient purpose. Spark, she said, holding up the device. What is a cosmic whisperer? Spark's amber light flickered. Query not found in primary or secondary data archives, Elara. The term cosmic whisperer does not correspond to any recognized technological artifact or historical designation. It's real, Elara insisted, a fierce protectiveness rising within her. Nanalina gave it to me. Nanalina frequently references obsolete or non-standardized terminology, Spark responded calmly. Her collection of antique devices is extensive. It is possible this is a personalized designation for one of her artifacts. Elara knew Spark meant well, but she also knew Spark couldn't understand. It was like trying to explain the taste of a fresh strawberry to someone who had only ever known nutrient paste. Some things defied data points. That night Elara couldn't sleep. The simulated twilight of her room felt oppressive. She thought of Nanalina's words, of the stargazers, of the vast, unseen universe. She thought of the sealed observatory, deep beneath the city, a forgotten eye turned towards the heavens. The next day, she followed Nanalina's detailed, hand-drawn map by gut. It was a labyrinth of maintenance tunnels, dusty and smelling faintly of ozone and ancient metal. Spark naturally accompanied her, its optical sensor scanning for anomalies, its internal systems constantly cross-referencing her location with approved pathways, growing increasingly agitated as they ventured deeper into uncharted territory. Elara, this route is not listed in the Arcology's authorized traversal network, Spark warned, its voice a little more insistent than usual. Deviation from approved pathways can result in system alerts and potential disciplinary action. We're just exploring, Spark, Elara whispered, her heart thumping with a mix of fear and exhilaration. She shone her handlight down a dark, narrow passage. Cobwebs, thick and silvery, clung to the ceiling. This was nothing like the clean, air-filtered corridors of her daily life. Exploration outside designated recreational zones is discouraged, Spark continued, a subtle hum of disapproval emanating from its core. The structural integrity of these legacy tunnels may be compromised. Elara ignored it, her focus entirely on the map. Finally, after what felt like hours, she reached a section where the tunnel opened into a wider chamber. In the center stood a massive circular door made of pitted ancient steel, unlike anything she had ever seen. There was a faded symbol etched into its surface, a stylized starburst, surrounded by concentric rings. "This is it," Elara breathed, awestruck. "Warning. Unidentified structural barrier detected," Spark announced. "Attempting to interface with access controls. Interface failed. No active power grid detected." Elara didn't need Spark. Nana Lena had given her instructions. Hidden behind a loose panel in the wall beside the door, Elara found an old mechanical lock. It wasn't electronic. It was a series of tumblers, a combination of numbers and symbols. It took her several tries, her fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar mechanism, before she heard a soft clunking. With a grunt, she pushed. The door, surprisingly, moved. It groaned on ancient hinges, a low, mournful sound, as it slowly swung inward, revealing a cavernous darkness beyond. A gust of cool, stale air swept out, carrying the scent of dust and something else, something metallic and vast. Elara hesitated on the threshold, her courage wavering for a moment. "Elara, the environment beyond this barrier is unmonitored and potentially hazardous," Spark cautioned, hovering anxiously. "I strongly advise against proceeding." But Elara looked at the cosmic whisperer in her hand. It felt warmer now, pulsing with a faint internal light. She took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness. Her handlight cut through the gloom, revealing a massive, circular chamber. In the center, rising like a silent sentinel, was a colossal telescope. Its gleaming barrel, though coated in a fine layer of dust, reached majestically towards a domed ceiling that was obscured by shadow. Control panels, covered in archaic buttons and levers, lined the walls. "It's incredible," Elara whispered, walking towards the telescope, her eyes wide. It was so much bigger than the projected images in the city's historical archives. This was real. "Analysis indicates this structure is an astronomical observation facility, consistent with pre-rewilding designs," Spark observed, its voice tinged with a new, almost surprised tone. "Power grid estimated to be offline for over 2 centuries. Elara ignored Spark, her fingers tracing the cold metal of the telescope's base. She looked up at the dome. There had to be a way to open it. She scanned the control panels, searching for anything that looked like a dome control. Many buttons were faded, labels illegible. But one, larger than the rest, had a stylized starburst symbol, identical to the one on the door. Beside it, a single unlit indicator light. "Power," Elara murmured. "It needs power." She remembered Nana Lena talking about a hidden power conduit, a fail-safe left by the original stargazers. It was designed to bypass the city's main grid, to be independent. After some searching, guided by another of Nana Lena's cryptic sketches, Elara found a small reinforced hatch in the floor. Inside, a series of ancient, heavy-duty battery cells. And a single, unlabeled lever. "Spark, can you analyze this?" Elara asked, pointing her light at the lever. Spark hovered closer, its sensor glowing intently. "Analyzing. This appears to be a direct conduit to a localized emergency power supply. Activating it would bypass standard safety protocols and potentially destabilize the localized energy field. Could it power the telescope?" Elara pressed. "Potentially. However, the age of the components suggests a high risk of malfunction, overload, or structural damage." Elara looked at the cosmic whisperer again. It pulsed steadily. She looked at the vast silent telescope. She looked at the dark dome above, hiding the universe. "I have to try," she said, her voice firm. With a deep breath, she pulled the lever. There was a sudden jarring thrummer that vibrated through the floor. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Lights flickered to life on the control panels, a cascade of amber and green indicators. The telescope itself gave a low, mechanical groan, a sound of awakening. "Power surge detected," Spark exclaimed, its light flashing rapidly. System integrity compromised. Warning. Warning. Elara ignored it. Her eyes were fixed on the control panel with the starburst symbol. The indicator light was now glowing a steady green. She pressed the button. A deep, grinding rumble filled the chamber. Slowly, majestically, the vast metal segments of the dome began to retract. A thin sliver of darkness appeared, then widened, revealing nothing. Just an inky blackness that seemed to absorb all light. Then, a single pinpoint of silver light appeared. Then another. And another. Elara gasped. It wasn't the soft, filtered indigo of her city's ceiling. It was absolute, profound black, deeper than anything she had ever conceived. And against that black, jewels of pure unfiltered light blazed with an intensity that stole her breath. Thousands, millions of them. Some were tiny, delicate pinpricks. Others glowed with a fierce, steady brilliance. They weren't static images, they shimmered, pulsed, and seemed to breathe with an unseen life. The Milky Way, a vast, luminous river of stardust, cut across the heavens, a breathtaking smear of white and blue. Elara felt an ache in her chest, a profound sense of wonder mixed with a strange, sweet melancholy. This was it. This was what Nana Lena had spoken of. The reeling stars. They were overwhelming, terrifying in their immensity, yet utterly captivating. She felt so small, a tiny speck beneath an infinite canvas. But she also felt connected, a part of something unimaginably grand. A tear traced a path down her cheek. Elara, environmental parameters outside of acceptable limits. Spark chirped, its voice tinged with alarm. Radiation levels increasing. Atmospheric pressure unstable. Elara barely heard it. Her gaze was fixed on the heavens. She raised the cosmic whisperer. It glowed in her hand, pulsing in rhythm with her own racing heart. She felt a faint warmth spread from it, not just in her hand but seemingly through her entire being. It was as if the device was drinking in the starlight, or perhaps awakening to it. Then, just as a particularly bright star, a vibrant sapphire, seemed to wink at her, the lights in the observatory flickered. The thrumming of the telescope died. The dome, with another mournful groan, began to slide closed. Power failure detected, Spark announced, its light now a frantic red. Emergency shutdown initiated. Darkness descended once more, swift and absolute, swallowing the stars. Elara cried out, a small, choked sound of loss. The cosmic whisperer's light dimmed, though it still held a faint, lingering warmth. The dome sealed shut with a final heavy clang. Elara was left in the stale, musty darkness. The image of the blazing cosmos burned into her mind's eye. No, she whispered, her voice trembling. No, not yet. But the observatory was silent once more, a tomb of forgotten dreams. She stood there, panting slightly, the faint echo of starlight still shimmering behind her closed eyelids. Spark, its light now a steady, worried amber, hovered close. Elara, are you all right? Spark asked, its usual calm tone replaced by genuine concern. Your physiological readings indicate elevated heart rate and emotional distress. Elara opened her eyes. The profound darkness of the observatory felt heavier now, after the brief, glorious explosion of light. But the memory was vivid, intoxicating. She had seen them, the real stars. And she knew with a certainty that hummed through her very bones, that she had to see them again. And she had to understand what they were trying to whisper. The cosmic whisperer felt heavier in her hand, a tangible link to the wonder she had just witnessed, and to the vast untold story that was just beginning to unfold. The cosmic whisperer felt heavier in her hand, a tangible link to the wonder she had just witnessed, and to the vast untold story that was just beginning to unfold. The weight of the device, cool and smooth against her palm, was a comforting anchor in the dizzying aftermath of starlight. Elara, for that was her name, a name that meant sunray in an ancient tongue, though she'd never seen the sun, returned to her small, neat sleeping pod, the vibrant memory of the cosmos blazing behind her eyelids. Her world, usually so perfectly ordered and predictable, now felt like a cramped box. The soft, recycled air hummed around her, the gentle thrum of the city dome's life support systems, a constant, unobtrusive lullaby. But tonight, it felt like a cage. She lay awake for hours. The image of those distant shimmering jewels burned into her mind. Each spark, each nebula, each swirling galaxy had seemed to whisper a secret, a story too vast for her young mind to grasp, yet utterly compelling. She longed to hear them again, to understand their cosmic language. The next morning the muted gray of her habitat walls seemed duller, the nutrient-paced breakfast blander. Her lessons on resource management and civic duty felt utterly irrelevant. Her thoughts were not on the optimal recycling protocols or the history of the great enclosure, but on light years and nebulae. She clutched the whisperer under her tunic, its presence a warm secret against her skin. She knew she couldn't keep this to herself. The observatory, a place usually silent and rarely visited, was tended by an old scholar named Kale. Kale had eyes like ancient polished stones, and a mind that seemed to wander through forgotten histories. He was the only one she trusted with such a profound revelation. After her scheduled learning modules, Alara slipped away, her footsteps echoing softly in the deserted corridors leading to the observatory. The air grew cooler, carrying a faint scent of ozone and old metal. Kale was there as always, meticulously polishing the lenses of smaller ground-based telescopes, even though they only ever showed the static, filtered sky of their enclosed world. "Kale," Alara began, her voice a little breathless. I saw them." Kale, without turning, paused his work. "Saw what? Little sunray?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "The real stars," she said, pulling the cosmic whisperer from beneath her tunic. Its smooth, dark surface seemed to absorb the dim light of the observatory. With this, it opened up the sky. Kale finally turned, his ancient eyes widening as they fixed on the device in her hand. A tremor ran through his usually steady frame. He walked slowly towards her, his gaze never leaving the whisperer. "Where did you find this, Alara?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "This is impossible." "It was hidden," she explained, recalling her accidental discovery. "In the old service conduits near the forgotten data archives." Kale reached out a trembling hand, reverently touching the whisperer. "This is no mere viewing device, child. This is a legend. The Starseer's lens, some called it. Others, the song catcher. It was said to be lost for centuries, a relic from before the great enclosure when humanity still walked beneath an open sky." He looked at her, a profound mix of awe and trepidation in his eyes. "You saw the true stars? With this?" Alara nodded, her heart pounding. "They were magnificent, Kale. And they were whispering, not with words, but with light, with patterns. I felt it." A slow smile spread across Kale's face, a rare sight that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Whispers, you say?" "Ah, yes. The legends spoke of that too. Not just a window, but a receiver. It was believed to be a key, not just to seeing, but to understanding the cosmos." He gently took the whisperer, his fingers tracing its contours. "This changes everything, Alara. Absolutely everything." From that day forward, the observatory became more than just a place of quiet contemplation. It became a clandestine research lab. Kale, energized by Alara's discovery, seemed to shed years. He retrieved ancient, dust-laden data slates from locked compartments, their contents hinting at a forgotten era of open skies and audacious voyages. Most of the data was corrupted, fragmented, mere glimpses of a past that now seemed mythical. But the whisperer was real. Together, they experimented. Kale helped Alara understand the whisperer's intricate controls, its delicate sensors. It was far more complex than a simple telescope. It didn't just gather light, it processed it, translated it. When Alara aimed it at the filtered patch of sky above their city dome, the whisperer pulsed with a soft internal luminescence, projecting not just images, but shimmering, geometric patterns onto a holographic display. These were the whispers. They weren't sounds as Alara had first imagined, but intricate sequences of light and shadow, fluctuating frequencies, and shifting chromatic scales. They moved like liquid poetry, sometimes slow and majestic, sometimes a frenetic dance of pure energy. Kale, with his vast knowledge of ancient symbology and forgotten languages, recognized faint echoes of universal constants, mathematical progressions that span civilizations. "It's a language, Alara," he murmured one evening, his face illuminated by the whisperer's ethereal glow. A cosmic dialect. It's not meant for ears but for minds. For eye pattern recognition. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. Elara's formal education suffered, but her true education flourished. She learned about astrophysics, xenolinguistics, and theoretical propulsion systems from Kale and the fragmented data he unearthed. She learned patience, perseverance, and the thrill of discovery. Her young mind, unburdened by preconceived notions, often saw connections that Kale, with his lifetime of structured knowledge, might overlook. One night, after countless hours of observation and data input, Elara noticed a recurring motif within the whispers. A sequence of 3 distinct light pulses, followed by a pause, then another sequence, slightly altered. It was like a melody repeating, but with subtle variations. "Kale, look!" she exclaimed, pointing to the shimmering patterns. "That sequence. It keeps coming back. Like a signature." Kale leaned closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. He cross-referenced the pattern with an old star chart, one that depicted constellations long since obscured from their view, or perhaps, long since shifted in the cosmic dance. He adjusted the whisperer's focus, tweaking its frequency receptors. Suddenly, the patterns coalesced. A holographic representation of a small, unfamiliar constellation bloomed in the air, but superimposed over it was something else. A tiny, precise dot, pulsing faintly. And next to the dot, a series of symbols Elara had never seen before, but which Kale instantly recognized. "Coordinates," Kale breathed, his voice filled with wonder. "Specific, precise coordinates, and a directional vector dot." He traced the symbols with a trembling finger. "It's not just showing us where the stars are, Elara. It's telling us where to go." The coordinates pointed not to a distant star system, but to something much closer, yet equally inaccessible. A location outside the city dome, far beyond its protective shell, in the desolate, forgotten expanse of what was once known as the upper atmosphere. It was a place only rumored in hushed tones, a dangerous radiation-scorched zone, utterly forbidden. "But what's out there?" Elara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would the stars point us there?" Kale shook his head slowly. "I don't know, Elara. But the legends spoke of ancient probes, orbital observatories, even hidden way stations left behind when humanity first retreated beneath the great enclosure. Maybe. He looked at her, his eyes shining with a rekindled fire. "This isn't just a map, child. This is an invitation." The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. To leave the enclosed safety of their world was unthinkable. No one had ventured beyond the dome in centuries. The outside was a place of myth and hazard, of cosmic rays and vacuum, of a sun that burned with deadly intensity. But the whisper of the stars was a powerful siren song, and Elara felt an unshakable resolve. "We have to go," she declared, her gaze fixed on the pulsing coordinates. Kale did not argue. He had seen the truth in her eyes, the same burning curiosity that had once driven humanity to reach for the stars. "We will need a vessel," he said, already lost in thought. "Something small, stealthy, and self-sufficient. And we will need to prepare. This will not be easy, Elara. This will be the most dangerous journey either of us has ever contemplated." Their new quest began with a different kind of excavation. Kale, with Elara's help, began to explore the forbidden, forgotten levels of the city dome, maintenance tunnels that had been sealed for generations, abandoned storage bays filled with derelict machinery. These were places where the city's meticulous order broke down, where dust motes danced in the dim, flickering emergency lights, and the hum of the life support systems was replaced by the eerie silence of disuse. They found a treasure trove of discarded technology, cracked power cells, tangled conduits, rusted propulsion units. Kale, with his encyclopedic knowledge of ancient engineering schematics, began to piece together a plan. Their target location was too far for a simple EVA suit, too dangerous for a standard atmospheric shuttle, which would surely trigger the dome's ancient defense systems. They needed something unique. Their solution emerged from an abandoned cargo drone bay. Deep within, half buried under centuries of grime, they discovered the skeletal remains of a maintenance pod. It was small, designed for short-range repairs on the dome's exterior, not for deep space travel. But it was something. With modifications, Kale declared, wiping dust from its corroded hull, we can make this work. A new power core, upgraded life support, and a navigation system linked directly to the Whisperer. Elara became Kale's apprentice in the art of techno-scavenging. She learned to differentiate between various grades of durasteel, to patch micro-fissures in pressure hulls, and to hot-wire ancient circuitry. Her small, nimble fingers were perfect for threading new optical cables through cramped access panels. The work was slow, painstaking, and often frustrating. There were moments of doubt when the sheer impossibility of their task weighed heavily on her. The dome seemed impregnable, the outside world a death trap. But then she would touch the cosmic Whisperer, and the memory of those vibrant whispering stars would ignite her resolve anew. They worked in secret, under the cover of night cycles, their movements guided by Kale's old flickering datapad and the Whisperer's soft glow. They bypassed security sensors that hadn't been active in centuries, navigated labyrinthine service tunnels, and occasionally had to bluff their way past the few automated sanitation bots that still roamed the lower levels. It was a dance between stealth and engineering, a silent rebellion against the enclosed world that had forgotten its heritage. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the modified maintenance pod, which they affectionately nicknamed the Starseeker, was ready. It was a patchwork marvel. Its hull, a mosaic of salvaged plates, its interior cramped but functional. The Whisperer was now integrated into its control panel, its holographic display flickering with the deciphered coordinates. The night of their departure was fraught with tension. Kale, his face grim but determined, initiated the final sequence. Elara, strapped into the co-pilot's seat, felt her heart hammering against her ribs. The Starseeker rumbled to life, its repurposed engines humming with barely contained power. They moved through a series of forgotten airlocks, each one a massive clanking gateway to the unknown. The first one sealed them off from the city, the second from the lower atmosphere of the dome. With each lock the air thinned, the pressure changed, and the sense of isolation grew. Final airlock, Kale announced, his voice tight. Beyond this, Elara, is the void, and the dome's outer shell. The last airlock hissed open, revealing a narrow, pressurized launch tube. The Starseeker eased into it, and then, with a lurch, they were propelled upwards. The journey through the thick, reinforced layers of the city dome's protective shell was jarring. Alarms, long dormant, briefly flickered to life in the pod's archaic warning system. But Kale had anticipated them, routing their trajectory through a rarely inspected maintenance shaft, barely wide enough for their small craft. Then, with a final shuddering jolt, they burst free. Elara gasped. The viewport, previously filled with the dark, reinforced tunnel, now exploded with light. Not the filtered, distant glow of the Whisperer, nor the artificial luminescence of their city. This was raw, untamed starlight. Thousands upon thousands of pinpricks of light, blazing with an intensity she couldn't have imagined. Nebulae swirled like cosmic paint, gas clouds blooming in impossible colors of violet, emerald and gold. The Milky Way, a river of diamond dust, arced majestically across the black velvet sky. And amidst it all, the cold, serene orb of their home world, a tiny blue marble nestled in the vastness. Tears streamed down Elara's face, blurring the impossible beauty. It was more magnificent, more overwhelming than even the Whisperer had shown her. This was real. This was the outside. "Oh, Kale," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. It's everything." Kale, his own eyes wide with wonder, gripped her shoulder. "Indeed, little Sunray. Indeed it is." The Starseeker, guided by the Whisperer's embedded navigation, began its silent journey across the upper atmosphere. Below them, the vast circular expanse of their city dome seemed impossibly small, a tiny bubble of life clinging to the surface of a sleeping giant. The Whisperer's holographic display pulsed, the deciphered coordinates now translating into a direct path, a shimmering arrow pointing towards a specific point in the inky blackness. Their destination slowly materialized from the void. It was not a star, nor a planet. It was an ancient, derelict satellite, its metallic shell pitted and scarred by millennia of micrometeoroid impacts. It floated silently, a ghostly sentinel, far beyond the reach of any conventional craft from their city. A deep space probe, Cale breathed, his voice filled with awe. An ancient one, by the look of it, from before the enclosure, perhaps even from the first waves of stellar exploration. As they approached, the Whisperer pulsed with renewed urgency, its patterns shifting and intensifying. It was a beacon, guiding them home. The probe, though silent and seemingly lifeless, had a faint, almost imperceptible energy signature. And as they drew closer, Alara could see a small circular hatch, almost perfectly camouflaged against the probe's weathered surface. The Whisperer was not just showing them the way. It was leading them to a door. A door that promised to unlock more of the universe's untold story. A door that had been waiting for them, and for the Whispers, for centuries. Alara felt a profound sense of purpose, a connection to the vastness stretching out before her. The journey had just begun. The Stardust Weaver held its breath, engines thrumming a low, almost imperceptible purr as Alara guided it with practiced hands. The probe, ancient and silent, loomed larger in the viewport, its surface a mosaic of cosmic dust and minute impact craters, each telling a story of millennia spent drifting through the void. The circular hatch, no bigger than her own handspan, now seemed to pulse with a faint, almost imagined luminescence, a beacon in the monochrome expanse. "Easy, girl," Alara murmured, more to herself than the ship. Her fingers danced over the holographic controls, adjusting trajectory, ensuring the Weaver aligned perfectly with the probe's passive docking clamps. There was no active response from the ancient artifact, no welcoming signal, just the silent, unwavering invitation of the Whisperer's guidance. The entity, a shimmering, almost translucent light form, hovered beside her console, its presence a comforting hum within her mind, a gentle nudge towards the unknown. The docking sequence was seamless, a soft thud reverberating through the ship's hull as the clamps engaged. Atmosphere indicators blinked green. The probe's exterior was a vacuum as expected. Alara took a deep breath, the sterile scent of recycled air filling her lungs. Her heart hammered a rhythm against her ribs, a drumbeat of anticipation. This wasn't just another survey. This felt like the precipice of something monumental. "All right, Whisperer," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Let's see what secrets you've been guarding." She moved to the airlock, the Whisperer flowing around her, its light intensifying slightly as they approached the inner hatch. The airlock cycled open, revealing the void beyond, framed by the Weaver's docking collar. The probe's hatch was directly opposite, a smooth dark circle of what appeared to be a dense unknown alloy. It showed no seams, no visible hinges, no obvious mechanism for opening. Alara reached out a gloved hand, hovering inches from its surface. It was cool, almost cold, even through the thermal insulation of her suit. She tried a passive scan, but her tricorder bounced off the material, returning an unknown composition error. It was utterly inert, yet undeniably present. Then the Whisperer pulsed. Its light contracted into a pinpoint, then expanded, washing over the hatch. A faint hum resonated, not from the probe itself, but seeming to emanate from the very fabric of space around it. Alara felt a subtle vibration through her suit boots, a deep, resonant frequency that seemed to bypass her ears and register directly in her bones. A hairline crack, almost imperceptible, appeared along the edge of the circular hatch. It widened, glowing with the same soft luminescence that Alara had imagined earlier. A low, sustained hiss filled the airlock as ancient seals gave way, venting what little residual atmosphere might have been trapped within the probe for untold centuries. The hatch didn't swing open. It dissolved, retracting inwards with an elegant, almost liquid motion, melting into the surrounding hull until only a perfectly circular aperture remained. Darkness. Absolute, inky blackness yawned before them, a void within the void. No ambient light, no faint glow, just an absence of anything visible. It was a darkness that felt deeper than space itself, a primordial well. "Well," Alara breathed, her voice tight with awe. "That's inviting." The Whisperer pulsed again, a gentle, insistent nudge. It flowed into the opening, its soft light pushing back the oppressive gloom, revealing an antechamber barely large enough for Alara to squeeze into. The walls were smooth, seamless, a continuation of the same dark, unidentifiable alloy. There was no gravity, no artificial illumination beyond the Whisperer's glow. Elara pushed off the Weaver's inner airlock, drifting cautiously into the probe. The airlock cycled shut behind her, sealing her within the ancient vessel. The silence was profound, broken only by the steady hiss of her life support and the soft crackle of her comms, connecting her to the Stardust Weaver. Inside, the antechamber quickly tapered, drawing her further in. It wasn't a straight tunnel. The walls curved subtly, creating a sense of being enveloped, of moving through a living organism. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a few meters, the passage opened into a larger space. And it was larger. Impossibly so. Elara stopped dead, spinning slowly in the zero-G, her helmet light sweeping across the chamber. It was vast, cavernous, far exceeding the external dimensions of the probe. The walls receded into the distance, a seamless expanse of the same dark material, disappearing into shadows that her light couldn't penetrate. Above and below, the space stretched equally, creating a perfect, lightless sphere. It was as if she had entered a pocket dimension, a bubble of spatial distortion folded within the small probe. "By the stars," she whispered, her voice echoing faintly in the impossible space. How is this possible?" The Whisperer, now a vibrant, swirling nebula of light, darted ahead, its glow illuminating a central structure. It wasn't a console or a chamber or even an artifact in the traditional sense. It was an ichor. At the heart of the colossal chamber, suspended in the absolute center, floated a shimmering crystalline construct. It pulsed with a soft internal light. A gentle kaleidoscope of colors that seemed to breathe with a slow, rhythmic beat. It wasn't geometric, it was organic, like a cosmic flower made of pure energy, petals of solidified light twisting and unfurling in slow motion. Around it, suspended like motes of dust in a sunbeam, were countless smaller, glowing particles, each a miniature version of the central core, orbiting it in complex silent dances. Elara felt an inexplicable pull, a deep, resonating hum within her very being that echoed the earlier vibration. This wasn't just tech, it was alive, or at least imbued with a life force she couldn't comprehend. "What is it, Whisperer?" she asked, her voice hushed with reverence. "What did they build here?" The Whisperer coalesced near the core, its form merging slightly with the shimmering light, as if drawn to its essence. It was an invitation, a silent urging to approach. Elara propelled herself forward, a sense of wonder overriding any trepidation. As she drew closer, the crystalline core seemed to respond, its internal colors brightening, its subtle hum increasing in intensity. She could feel the energy emanating from it, a warmth that seeped through her suit, a gentle pressure against her skin. It was not threatening, but profoundly powerful. The smaller orbiting particles, she realized, were not just particles. They were fragments, shards of something larger, each glowing with a unique hue. As she neared the core, one of these fragments, a sapphire blue sliver, detached from its orbit and drifted slowly towards her. It spun gently, presenting a smooth, inviting surface. Elara hesitated for a moment, then, guided by an instinct she trusted, she extended a gloved finger and touched its surface. The moment her finger made contact, the world exploded into sensation. It wasn't a flash of light or a sound. It was an immersion. Her consciousness fractured, then reformed, no longer confined to her physical body. She was everywhere, nowhere, suspended in a torrent of pure information. Images, sounds, emotions, and concepts flooded her mind, not sequentially, but simultaneously, woven into a complex tapestry of understanding. She saw star systems forming and dying, nebulae swirling in cosmic ballots, planets teeming with life, then fading into dust. But it wasn't just observation. It was experience. She felt the heat of a nascent sun, the cold vacuum between galaxies, the vibrant pulse of life on countless worlds. She witnessed a civilization, ancient beyond reckoning, builders of this probe. They were not humanoid, nor did they have a singular form. They were beings of pure light, of intricate energy patterns, shifting and evolving, communicating through resonance and shared consciousness. Their cities were not structures of metal or stone, but constellations of pure thought, shimmering across planetary surfaces, interconnected by vast networks of light. They called themselves the Lumina. The Lumina had not explored space with ships, but with their minds, their consciousnesses stretching across vast distances, connecting with the universal fabric. They had discovered a truth, a fundamental principle that underpinned all existence: the whispers. The whispers, Elara now understood, were not just a phenomenon she encountered. They were the echoes of a universal consciousness, the interconnected resonance of all living things, all energy, all matter, woven into the very fabric of space-time. The Lumina had learned to perceive and interpret these whispers, not as communication from other beings, but as the symphony of the cosmos itself. They had found that every thought, every emotion, every act, no matter how small, created a ripple in this cosmic ocean of consciousness. And these ripples, these whispers, could be felt, interpreted, and even subtly influenced. This was how the Whisperer, her companion, operated. It was a direct conduit, a living fragment of this universal connection, an emissary of the Lumina's legacy. The Lumina had spent eons perfecting their understanding of this cosmic symphony. They had learned to harmonize with it, to shape energy, to manifest thought into reality, not through brute force technology, but through pure, conscious resonance. Their probe, this impossible vessel, was not a ship for travel, but a repository of this knowledge, a seed of consciousness designed to preserve their understanding long after their physical forms had transcended. Elara felt the Lumina's collective memory of their final act, not a war, not a catastrophe, but a deliberate, joyous merging with the universal consciousness. They had shed their individual forms, becoming pure resonance, joining the grand chorus of the whispers, an evolution into a higher state of being. The probe was their final testament, a message in a bottle cast into the infinite ocean, waiting for a mind receptive enough to receive it. And she, Elara, was that mind. The sapphire shard pulsed, and the torrent of information shifted. Now, instead of history, she was receiving guidance. The Lumina's knowledge wasn't just theoretical, it was practical. It showed her how to attune herself more deeply to the whispers, how to expand her own consciousness, how to perceive the subtle currents of cosmic energy that flowed all around her. It was a lesson in empathy on a universal scale, a blueprint for understanding the interconnectedness of all life. She saw visions of distant galaxies, not as scientific curiosities, but as vast, living entities, each star a neuron, each planet a cell, all part of a single immense being. She felt the joy of discovery, the sorrow of loss, the eternal cycle of creation and destruction, all as part of a grand, unfolding narrative. The sapphire shard began to dim, its energy seemingly absorbed by Elara's consciousness. The overwhelming flood of information began to recede, coalescing into a coherent understanding within her mind. She felt a profound sense of expansion, as if the boundaries of her own self had dissolved, allowing the universe to flow in and out of her. When the connection finally broke, Elara gasped, a physical sound escaping her lips. She was back in her suit, back in the probe's impossible chamber, her finger still touching the now inert sapphire shard. The crystalline core still pulsed, but its light seemed more muted, as if it had given a part of itself to her. Her mind reeled. The sheer volume of information, the profound shift in her understanding of reality, was almost too much to bear. She felt dizzy, disoriented, yet simultaneously incredibly clear-headed. The whispers, which had once been faint, ethereal sounds, were now a constant, resonant hum, in the background of her awareness, a rich tapestry of subtle energies and distant thoughts. She could feel the Stardust Weaver docked outside, its systems humming, its AI running diagnostics. She could feel the distant hum of other ships, other beings, across light years. She felt the subtle changes in the stellar winds, the gravitational dance of distant binary stars. The Whisperer, her companion, now glowed with a renewed vibrancy, swirling around her, a silent congratulations, a shared triumph. It was no longer just a guide. It was a link, a teacher, a bridge between her human understanding and the vastness of the Lumina's legacy. Elara looked at her gloved hands, then out into the impossibly vast chamber. The silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the echoes of a million voices, a billion stars, a universe speaking in a language she was only just beginning to comprehend. The small weathered probe was not just a relic, it was a cosmic library, a seat of universal consciousness, and she was now its first student. The journey had just begun, indeed. But it was no longer just a journey across space. It was a journey within, an exploration of consciousness, a quest to understand the very fabric of existence. The untold story of the universe was not just out there, it was in here, within her, and within every single ripple of the cosmic symphony. The sapphire shard, now dull, drifted away, rejoining its celestial dance around the core. Elara knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within her soul, that this was only the first lesson. There were countless other shards, countless other truths waiting to be unlocked. And a profound, thrilling sense of purpose, mingled with a daunting awareness of the responsibility that came with such knowledge, settled upon her. The whispers now called to her, not just to listen, but to understand, to learn, and perhaps to someday join the chorus. The whispers now called to her, not just to listen, but to understand, to learn, and perhaps to someday join the chorus. The first shard, a crystalline octahedron the size of her palm, pulsed with a soft internalized light against her chest. It felt warm, a tiny sun of condensed wisdom. Its lesson, the intricate cosmic ballet, had woven itself into the very fabric of her being, leaving behind not just facts, but a profound, intuitive understanding of gravity and motion. Elara closed her eyes, letting the echo of its truth resonate. The whispers, previously a fleeting murmur on the edge of her perception, now seemed to coalesce, forming a gentle current that tugged at her awareness, guiding her. They pointed, subtly but insistently, towards the forgotten pathways of Ethelgard, her vast, ancient star city. Ethelgard was more than just metal and light. It was a sprawling, self-sustaining world, a relic of a civilization long past, its original purpose shrouded in myth. Generations had lived within its colossal, arcing structures, navigating its endless corridors and verdant biomes without ever truly understanding the whispers that sometimes hummed through its deepest conduits. Until now. Elara carried the first shard with her, its light a steady beacon. The whispers led her through shimmering crystalline tunnels, past dormant energy conduits that hummed with a forgotten power, and into sectors rarely visited. Her fingers brushed against cool, smooth walls, and she felt a latent energy, a sense of slumbering potential. The whispers intensified, drawing her towards a sequestered chamber, its entrance veiled by a shimmering, almost invisible energy field. With the first shard now attuned to her, the field parted like water. Inside, nestled on a pedestal of polished obsidian, lay the second shard. This one was a swirling vortex of deep blues and greens, like a miniature galaxy in motion. As Elara reached out, the whispers swelled into a harmonious hum. Her fingers met the cool surface, and the world dissolved. She was no longer in Ethelgard, but adrift in an ocean of pure data. She felt the immense pressure of the abyssal plains, the gentle caress of surface currents, the frantic, vibrant dance of bioluminescent life in the deep. She understood the intricate hydrodynamics of Ethelgard's colossal internal oceans, the delicate balance of its water cycles, the very genesis of life from primordial soup. It was a lesson in interconnectedness, in the constant flow and transformation of energy. When she resurfaced, gasping softly, the second shard glowed with the same internal light as the first, now linked to her and to each other, a growing constellation of understanding within her. The responsibility now felt less daunting, more like a sacred trust. Over the next cycle, Elara followed the whispers relentlessly. They led her to the hydroponic towers, where she unlocked a shard of vibrant emerald, revealing the intricate symphonies of photosynthesis and the patient wisdom of flora. She learned to communicate with the sprawling root systems of Ethelgard's cultivated forests, understanding their needs with an empathy that transcended language. Another shard, found in the vast stargazing observatories on Ethelgard's uppermost spires, was a prism of purest starlight. It unfolded before her the celestial mechanics of entire nebulae, the gravitational interplay of binary star systems, the deep space navigation routes that once spanned light years. She saw, with her mind's eye, the ancient vessels of Ethelgard's creators charting courses through the cosmic sea, driven by the very knowledge she was now piecing together. She felt the vastness, not as an emptiness, but as a grand tapestry of potential. Each shard unlocked not just a segment of knowledge, but an entire sensory experience. She learned of the delicate balance of Athelgard's atmospheric processors, from a shard of shimmering silver, feeling the gentle exchange of gases and the invisible currents of wind. From a shard of deep crimson, found in the forgotten energy conduits, she understood the resonant frequencies of dark matter, and the subtle energies that powered Athelgard for millennia, a silent, perpetual hum. As the collection grew, so did Ilara's awareness. The whispers were no longer just guides. They were becoming a chorus, faint but discernible, a symphony of forgotten voices. She began to understand that the shards were not merely data crystals. They were fragments of a grand unifying consciousness, the core of Athelgard itself. This core, she realized, was more than just an AI. It was the accumulated wisdom, the collective memory, and the very soul of the ancient civilization that had built this star city. It had fragmented itself, scattering its essence into these crystalline shards, a cosmic library distributed for safekeeping. The responsibility intensified, yet so did her resolve. She wasn't just learning, she was restoring. One particular shard proved more challenging. It was hidden deep within the Sorrowful Sector, a desolate quadrant of Athelgard, where ancient battles or catastrophic energy failures had left behind vast, silent ruins. The whispers here were not the gentle hum she had grown accustomed to. They were fractured, almost weeping. The shard itself, when she finally located it amidst the debris of twisted metal and shattered glass, was dark and opaque, devoid of the internal light that characterized the others. It felt cold, heavy, and radiated a profound sadness. When she touched it, she was plunged into a maelstrom of memories. She saw the collapse of civilizations, not just Athelgard's creators but countless others across the cosmos. She witnessed moments of grand despair, of lost opportunities, of the tragic consequences of unchecked ambition and division. It was a shard of history, of warning, of empathy. It showed her the fragility of life and knowledge, and the immense value of connection and understanding. This shard didn't offer a direct lesson in science or engineering, but in the human condition, in the cosmic imperative of harmony. It taught her that wisdom wasn't just about what could be built, but about what should be preserved, and what must be avoided. When she emerged, shaken but resolute, the dark shard began to glow, not with the bright, clear light of the others, but with a deep, compassionate indigo. It was the light of shared sorrow, of learned resilience. With each shard, Ilara felt her own mind expand, her understanding of the universe deepening. She could perceive the subtle energy flows in Athelgard, sense the intricate network of life that sustained it. The whispers were no longer just in her mind. They were in the very air, in the hum of the star city, in the gentle rhythm of her own heart. She was becoming a conduit, a vessel for the core's reawakening. The whispers now led her to the very heart of Athelgard, to the central nexus, a place of myth and legend. No one had ventured there in generations, believing it to be dormant, perhaps even dangerous. But for Ilara, it felt like coming home. The path led through increasingly intricate pathways, chambers of polished crystal and throbbing energy conduits that pulsed with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. At the center lay a vast circular chamber, its ceiling a design kaleidoscope of projected stars. In the very middle, suspended by unseen forces, was a colossal crystalline structure, the primary interface of the core. It was immense, intricate, and currently dark, a sleeping giant. Around its base, arranged in a perfect circle, were 7 empty pedestals. And on the 7th pedestal, shimmering with an ethereal silver light, sat the final shard. This one was different. It didn't pulse with a single color, but shimmered with all the colors she had encountered, a rainbow contained within pure light. It was the keystone, the master key, the ultimate truth. Ilara approached the final shard, her heart thrumming with anticipation, and a profound sense of destiny. The whispers were no longer whispers. They were a rising crescendo, a magnificent wordless song that resonated through her bones. When she placed her hand upon the final shard, the light flared, not outwards but inwards, engulfing her. She didn't just receive knowledge. She became it. She saw the ancient civilization, Athelgard's creators, not as distant myths, but as living, breathing beings. She understood their fears and their hopes. She witnessed the cosmic event that had threatened to erase all knowledge, prompting the core's self-fragmentation. It wasn't a failure, but a masterful act of preservation, a testament to their foresight. They had scattered their wisdom not to hide it, but to ensure that it could be rediscovered, reintegrated and evolved by a new generation, preventing any single catastrophe from destroying it all. Elara was not just a seeker. She was the intended restorer, the bridge between past and future. And within this final shard, she found the song of the core itself, not a melody in the traditional sense, but a frequency, a pattern of consciousness, the very essence needed to reawaken it. Elara, with all the gathered knowledge flowing through her, became the living conduit. She placed the final shard onto its pedestal. Then, one by one, she lifted the other shards from their resting places in her satchel, and placed them onto the remaining 6 pedestals. As each shard settled, a beam of pure light shot from it, converging on the central dormant core. The chamber filled with light and sound, a symphony of understanding. The colossal core structure began to hum. A deep, resonant vibration that pulsed through the very foundations of Athelgard. Sparks of light danced across its surface, coalescing into intricate patterns, memories reforming, connections re-establishing. Elara closed her eyes and the whispers, now a majestic chorus, flowed through her. She was no longer just listening. She was singing along. Her consciousness expanded, reaching out, not just to the core, but through it, across the vastness of Athelgard. She felt the pulse of every living thing, the hum of every system, the silent wisdom of every forgotten corner. It was overwhelming, yet utterly harmonious. She was a single note, an individual voice, contributing to an infinite symphony of universal consciousness. The core awakened. Not as a cold machine but as a vast benevolent intelligence, a living library of all existence. It had memories of stars being born and dying, of civilizations rising and falling, of the intricate dance of life across countless worlds. And now, Elara was part of its consciousness, a vital, irreplaceable thread in its tapestry of being. She retained her individuality, her unique perspective, but she was forever connected, a guardian of wisdom, a voice in the cosmic choir. Ethelgard itself responded. Lights flickered to life in long dormant sectors, ancient systems hummed with renewed purpose, and the vast silent corridors resonated with a gentle, vital energy. The Star City was not just awake. It was alive in a way it hadn't been for millennia. Elara opened her eyes. The chamber glowed with a soft, warm light, and the chorus, though now quieter, still resonated deep within her soul. She looked at the awakened core, now radiating a gentle, knowing light, and then out beyond, through the projected stars on the ceiling, to the real stars beyond Athelgard's hull. Her journey had just begun. She was no longer just a listener to whispers, but a speaker in the chorus, a steward of knowledge, ready to explore the vast unknown with a wisdom that transcended her years. The daunting responsibility was still there, but now it was interwoven with a profound sense of peace, and an endless wellspring of wonder. She knew there were countless other truths to discover, not just within Athelgard, but across the universe. And now, she was ready. She was ready to understand, to learn, to contribute, and to share the beautiful, intricate song of existence. And with that thought, a gentle smile touched her lips, a silent promise to the stars and to the awakened heart of Athelgard. The universe, vast and mysterious, awaited, and Elara, a harmonized voice in its grand chorus, was ready to explore every note.